Okay, here are your chapter 12 notes. Okay, there's just one set of notes for chapter 12. It's a shorter chapter. Okay, and it's the end of our human systems unit. Okay, so we're looking at the excretory system, so kind of where wastes and excretions come from, okay, and then how that affects our internal equilibrium. So to maintain our life processes, the body must eliminate waste products that build up. Okay, our lungs eliminate the carbon dioxide, liver transforms toxins, okay, and then the last thing we're going to talk about today is how the kidneys remove waste, okay, and this helps balance out our pH, blood pH, okay, and maintain a water balance in our body. Okay, this is a chart out of your textbook. You have to put it down in your assignment. Okay, make sure you kind of know where those waste products are made, or where those waste products come from, okay, and the organ responsible for excreting them. Okay, the anatomy of your urinary system. So wastes are filtered from the blood by the kidneys and conducted, okay, or moved to the urinary bladder through ureters. Okay, the urinary sphincters are at the base of the bladder and act as valves permitting the storage of urine. Okay, and I know, like, for when we're talking about anatomy, you're asked to draw some of them, or like in your notes, you had to kind of fill some of them in. They didn't work. Make sure you kind of look over and know the anatomy. Okay, the nice thing is you can use your textbook if you have to like fill in any anatomy questions on your quiz and test. Okay, so when 200 milliliters of urine is collected, the bladder stretches slightly. Okay, when we get 400 milliliters, okay, the more stretch receptors are activated and you feel like you have to pee badly. Okay, basically, the more it stretches, the more urgent this message is saying that you have to go pee. Okay, if you reach 600 milliliters, the voluntary control of the bladder is lost. So basically, you're going to pee your pants if you get past that point. Okay, the sphincter will relax, the urine will enter the urethra and then leave the body. Okay, so just looking at some key components of our urinary system. So we got the kidneys. Whoops. Okay, kidneys up here. Whoops. Go back. Okay, so kidneys. Okay, these are our veins and arteries, okay, that go to our kidneys. Okay, the blood comes from them and gets filtered out through our kidneys, which we'll talk about. Then the waste comes down our ureters, okay, to our bladder, and then as we have to go pee, to our urethra. We're going to talk about more like the internal structure of our kidneys as we go, and so on. Okay, so the anatomy of our urinary system. Each kidney is made up of two layers. We have the cortex, okay, which is our outer layer here, okay, and then the medulla, which is our inner layer inside. Okay, nephrons, okay, are afferent arterioles, okay, supply the nephrons with blood. Okay, afferent arterioles branch into a capillary bed called a glomerulus. Okay, the nephrons, instead of the blood entering the venule, okay, and so like again, when we talked about in our circulatory system, the blood goes like through a capillary bed and goes from the arterioles through the capillary bed to the venule. Okay, but instead of that happening in our kidneys, the blood enters, or the blood from the glomerulus, okay, then enters efferent arterioles. These efferent arterioles then enter another net of capillaries called the peritubular capillaries. This network of capillaries surround the nephron and eventually join the renal vein. So the nephron is composed of the Bowman's capsule, the proximal tubule, the loop of Henle, distal tubule, and collecting ducts. And we have to kind of know how our blood goes through there and how it gets filtered out, and we'll talk about that as we go. So this is kind of what it looks like. So we have our blood coming in, okay, these would be our afferent arterioles, okay, they come into our glomerulus, okay, in Bowman's capsule. Okay. As they go through it, they go through our proximal tubule. Okay. Come down, drop down. This is our loop of Henle. Okay, and as it's kind of going down, things are filtering in and out, okay, of our veins, or into our veins and out of our arterioles. Okay, and we have our peritubular capillaries. Okay, and then the veins kind of absorb different things. Okay, and then our waste comes to our distal tubule to the collecting duct. Okay, and then this would be to our renal pelvis, which we'll talk about. Oops, something. Okay, going through, so the nephrons, so we have the Bowman's capsule structure that surrounds the glomerulus. Okay, the proximal tubule joins the Bowman's capsule with the loop of Henle. Okay, the loop of Henle carries the urine from the proximal tubule to the distal tubule. Okay, our distal tubule, the urine travels to here from the loop of Henle to the collecting duct, and the collecting duct carries the urine from the nephron to the renal pelvis of the kidney. Okay, the formation of urine depends on 3 different functions. So we have filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. For filtration, each nephron in the kidney has an independent blood supply. So each of our arteries break into arterioles and each go to their own nephron in the kidney. The blood moves from the afferent arteriole to the glomerulus. Okay, and a high pressure filter is what's happening there. Okay, dissolved solutes pass through the wall of the glomerulus, okay, to the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so just kind of a chart showing the molecules that can pass into the Bowman's capsule. Okay, and so like water can pass, all of these things can pass through the glomerulus, okay, but only some can pass through the Bowman's capsule. Really the only thing that can't is the plasma proteins, erythrocytes, again, these are red blood cells, and platelets. Okay, all kind of parts of our blood. Okay, but like urea, which we want to get rid of, hydrogen ions, which make things acidic, okay, amino acids, okay, glucose, sodium chloride, water, all can pass through, okay, and be filtered out. Reabsorption, so approximately 600 milliliters of the fluid flows through the kidneys every day. Okay, about 120 milliliters is filtered into the nephrons. If no water is being absorbed back into the blood, you make basically 120 milliliters of urine every minute, which means like you would have to pee every 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, but fortunately, because of reabsorption, only 1 milliliter of urine is formed for every 120 milliliters that kind of goes through the filter. So 119 milliliters of fluid and solutes are being reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. This reabsorption is then aided by the use of different hormones. Okay, so the hormone aldosterone, okay, is used to help reabsorb water and sodium ions, okay, and water and sodium ions, and put them back in the blood. Okay, the hormone ADH, the antidiuretic hormone, also helps by reabsorbing water. Okay, selective reabsorption uses both active and passive transport. So again, active transport uses energy, passive transport doesn't use any energy. Okay, and so from this reabsorption occurs until a threshold level has been met, and then it stops. So if we have excess solutes, so like sodium chloride salts, then they're excreted into the urine. So once we have enough in our blood, okay, then everything left over goes into our urine. Glucose and amino acids attach to the carrier molecules that shuttle them out of the nephron and into the blood. Okay, due to different osmotic pressures, only certain amounts of solute can then be reabsorbed. Okay, and so secretion, this is the movement of waste from the blood into the nephron. So ammonia, excess hydrogen ions, potassium ions, and different drugs like penicillin can all be secreted. So again, what's happening here? Okay, we have our glomerulus in here, okay, going through here. Okay, passive transport, meaning that like they can just flow through diffusion. Okay, so bicarbonate ions. Okay, water flows through osmosis. Ammonia can flow through diffusion. Potassium ions. Okay, and then other things require active transport to kind of put them in and out. Okay, and so that takes energy. Okay, and then as things come down, okay, water is pulled out in the outer medulla. Okay, and then sodium chloride pulled out at the bottom in the inner medulla at the bottom of our loop of Henle. Okay, and then as it goes up, like sometimes it takes energy to pull it out, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the buildup and how much there is. Okay, you should know again this chart and what each thing means. Okay, going through kind of the processes. Again, this chart is out of your textbook. Okay, going through what happens at each stage. Okay, again, good thing to kind of have beside you as you're doing any quizzes or tests. Okay, just to kind of know what's happening at each stage. Okay, what's being transported and at each stage. Okay, the pH balance, despite consuming a variety of foods and fluids with all kinds of pH levels, the pH of our body remains relatively constant. Okay, and acid-base balance is maintained by buffer system, okay, that absorbs H plus ions, okay, or ions that act as bases, such as the bicarbonate ion. Okay, so the buffer system of the blood will remove any H plus ions, okay, and then the kidneys restore the buffer by causing the bicarbonate ions to diffuse back into the blood. Okay, and so just kind of what's happening here. So as it's going through, okay, in our blood, and this would be in our different cells, okay, the H plus ion reacts with this bicarbonate, okay, to then make it more like the bicarbonate makes it basic. H plus is acidic. Okay, any extra H plus, okay, and sodium molecules from these reactions can get reabsorbed back into the blood to continue buffering. Okay, when kidney dysfunction, so when kidneys don't work properly, okay, many different issues can arise, such as diabetes mellitus, okay, nephritis, and kidney stones. Okay, so for diabetes mellitus, these are caused from inadequate secretion of insulin, okay, which insulin helps with our blood glucose levels. So if the blood glucose levels rise, causing a skew in the osmotic pressure, okay, in the nephron, which then leads to the water being secreted instead of reabsorbed. Okay, and then nephritis caused by the inflammation of many nephrons. This can lead to irreversible kidney damage and failure. And then kidney stones, okay, which you can see these jagged edged stones, if they're going down your ureter, okay, would not feel very good. Okay, these are caused by the buildup of different mineral solutes from the blood. As they move around the kidney, the sharp edges tear in the delicate tissue, okay, which causes extreme pain. Okay, they can pass naturally if they're small enough, okay, and they can be helped along by different shockwave therapy, okay, and basically these waves break the stones apart to make them smaller, okay, and if they're large enough, they can also be removed surgically. Okay, another little cartoon from the Awkward Yeti, kind of just talking about, or these are gallstones, okay, and then the kidneys helping them out by trying to get rid of